Listen to over and over again. Cedric Hendricks is a police officer in the 2nd District, and he's been a police officer here in St. Louis for over 20 years. You born and raised here in St. Louis, right?
Born in Arkansas, but I moved here when I was 10 months old. So
and and being a police officer is all you ever want to do?
Pretty much, yeah.
You recently wrote an op-ed piece in the St. Louis American called "Too Black for the Badge, Too Blue for the Brothers." Did they ask you to write this? Did you write this on your own?
I was asked by a friend as a response to an editorial that was written the week before by an activist who basically asked black police officers to join the forefront of stamping out rampant corruption and racism within law enforcement.
Right.
And my basic response was, I'm doing the best I can, man. But the solution to this problem is much more complicated than what he led on.
Oftentimes, and we had the controversy the last couple of weeks with the Pride Parade where the float had a Blue Lives Matter sign, and the Black Lives Matter people got offended because of the Blue Lives Matter people wanted to promote a lesbian who was also a police officer. And during the whole Ferguson thing, we've often talked about the plight of the African-American police officer in the city in a world in which, and you can speak to this better because you're here, right? I mean,
right.
What are you saying? You're saying it's a different world being a black police officer in this day and age?
First, I'm saying that being a black police officer is the least of my concerns. I'm a police officer. I'm here to enforce the law, period. That's my job. Mm-hmm. Now, being a black police officer is basically thrust upon me by certain members of certain communities who expect certain outcomes based on my appearance on their calls. Mm-hmm. Like I said in the piece, it feels like you're a slave serving two masters. You want to uphold the law, you want to enforce the rules and regulations and do your job as dictated by city, county, federal government, state and federal governments. But on the other hand, I'm being looked at in certain neighborhoods when I respond to certain calls as I should give this guy a break because we share a common heritage and we don't want this guy to get caught up in the system. And because the game is clearly rigged, and once I do that, this guy is basically out of luck for the rest of his life. Right.
And so they blame you, the police officer, for doing your job.
Pretty much. That's pretty much what happens. I enforce the law. Mm-hmm. This happened literally 2 days ago when my partner and I were dealing with what amounted to a civil dispute between a landlord and a tenant. And I walked the very unhappy tenant through what it is he needed to do to achieve satisfaction on a civil level because there was nothing I could do on a law enforcement level.
Right.
Well, it was all well and good until 10 minutes later when he and his girlfriend got stirred up again, and suddenly I wasn't listening to them because they're black. And because the police law enforcement system is inherently racist, there's nothing I'm going to do for them because they're black.
And he was saying this to you?
Directly to me.
Right. And so he was calling you racist even though you are African American.
It's not even a racist thing. If you and I are on a call together, if we're police officers, you being white, you're the racist, and it's almost expected of you that you're going to rule against whatever it is that particular person wants.
Right.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm even worse. I've sold out. Mm-hmm. Okay. I've gone over to the other side. I'm doing the other man's job for them, and that's an infinitely larger sense of betrayal than anything that you could ever do. It's a dilemma.
So in a sense, the white cop gets a pass where the black cop is treated worse?
I don't know if it's a pass as it is just an expectation.
Right.
You know, and to say treated worse, let's understand that this is a rare thing. This doesn't happen every single call.
Right.
There are particular calls and particular instances and particular times where I'm looked at like I should treat people a certain way. And if I don't do that, then clearly I've sold everybody out.
Right.
Now, but this is to your more radical element. 9 times out of 10, I deal with civilized people with
both black and white.
Both black and white.
Don't like being pulled over for a ticket, but understand it.
Exactly.
Thank you, officer. Have a good day.
Exactly. This is what you have to do. I get it. But there's always going to be that one guy.
Right.
He's always out there.
Interesting. When you come up to a scene, are you thinking that? Is that in your head somewhere?
It's not in my head until it's put there. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times when I look around and I get a little frustrated because I try to ask people, well, let's look at the Megan Boking shooting back in the Central West End a few years ago.
She was the St. Louis University volleyball player who was phone was stolen, shot and killed on a Saturday afternoon in the Central West End.
Right. I was a detective back then in the 9th District, and I came in. I wasn't a homicide detective. I'm not taking any credit for the investigation or the arrest or anything like that. Let's be clear.
Sure.
But I was there to assist homicide, and I had to beat witnesses off with a stick. Detective, can I talk to you for a second? Can I ask you about this? Detective, I think I saw something that might be
because
relevant.
They were coming forward with information.
Exactly. Now, contrast that with a shooting I got in the Jeff Vanderloo neighborhood where I arrive on the scene and the crime scene tape is up and the person has been shot and there are 60 people standing around, and I ask, did anybody see anything, and I get crickets, because there's this code among certain people, not everybody,
sure.
Certain people in the neighborhood, don't snitch,
right.
Don't tell, we'll handle this ourselves. So when the Boken case was cleared relatively quickly, and people from other neighborhoods said, well, clearly you just did that because she's a young white girl, I had to look at them and ask, what do you want from me? I come to your neighborhood and I ask you what happened, and you say nothing. So what am I supposed to do?
Right.
So am I thinking about it? I don't know that I'm thinking about it, but I am thinking about the potential frustration that I'm about to deal with.
But if you, Cedric Connor is our guest. He is a St. Louis City police officer, wrote an op-ed piece for the St. Louis American called "Too Black for the Badge, Too Blue for the Brothers." But it's human nature to walk up to a scene. I think, I don't know, I'm asking. To walk up to a scene and say, "Oh my goodness, I'm a black police officer. Here are black suspects. Here's a black. Here's a white. Here's a this."
No, that's
no
not what
color.
I do.
You don't see
that's
color.
That's not what I do.
No,
that's not my job.
Do you have to fight against that?
No,
no,
not really. I grew up in the suburbs. I grew up in the suburbs where I was a huge minority. I was in the Hazelwood School District when African Americans were single digits, in terms of population. So I'm kind of used to, how would I call it, being on the outside in, or being the square peg trying to fit into the round hole, that kind of thing. That's just normal for me.
Right.
This is a profession. This is my job. All right, this is what I do. I'm not interested in anyone's ethnicity unless it plays a direct role in the crime, which has been known to happen. That's why we have hate crimes.
Sure. Let's talk about the white police officers. Do you feel at home with the white police officers, or do you see some animosity there sometimes?
The overwhelming majority, yes. Now, there are always going to be a select few that have issues, and those issues are their business, okay? Everybody's got their own personal feelings. Everybody's got their own prejudices. My big thing has always been, and I've talked to some of my bosses about this, when we talk about what we can do to do our jobs better, I say don't lead with your politics. I'm not here to enforce what I believe. I'm here to enforce the law, which is why I was able to stand in the Soulard neighborhood years ago and spend half an hour defending a white man for flying a Confederate battle flag in his front yard to a black woman who thought I'd lost my mind. Do I think the battle flag is in poor taste and I don't care for it? Yeah, absolutely. But that's not the concern. The law says, the First Amendment says he has the right to fly that flag in his yard. And I have to leave it at that. Same thing years ago when I was at the VP Fair, and this just dawned on me on the 4th of July, no less, when a woman came up to me and pointed out that there were some Hare Krishnas across from the parade ground. And I asked, well, are they bothering you? Yeah, well, no. I said, so you're asking me to go over to the Hare Krishnas on the 4th of July on Independence Day and deny them their freedom of religion? That's kind of ironic, don't you think?
Right.
But that's what I'm dealing with. And circling back around to officers, certain officers don't like certain people for certain reasons. It could be a lack of education. It could be a lack of exposure. It could be a lack of understanding. What you have more often than not, and this includes me, is you have officers who have been raised in one particular area, one particular way, and they're dropped into something completely foreign to them. And their first exposure to the people in that area is negative. And it's consistently negative because the dispatcher never calls us with good news. Okay? I have yet to be working and have the radio go off and say, attention all cars, everything's fine. That doesn't happen. So when you're dealing with somebody in an inherently negative situation, then your mindset kind of gets a little jaded.
The criticism of police officers is that you don't know the community that you police.
That is somewhat fair because the sheer volume of calls doesn't enable me the time to get to know everybody going door to door. I would love to spend all my time on my particular beat, but the truth of the matter is the radio goes off, the beat car gets an assignment in that area, another radio assignment comes out in that same area, somebody's got to go handle that call. And that could be me, it could be one of my partners. We don't have the time to really stand there and get to know people because we are so shorthanded, because the districts have gotten bigger since we went from 9 districts to 6. I really wish we could stay there and go door to door and walk all the time, but it's just hard to do.
The criticism is that since Ferguson, the Ferguson effect, police officers tend to stay in their car a second longer, tend not to go look for the crime, tend to not want to be police officers, retire early, and don't sign up. What do you say? I
would buy into about half of that. Because what I found from police officers is we can't not do our jobs. We are just drawn to it. We just have to do it. No matter how bad the situation is, we're showing up. Shots are being fired, I'm going. That's what I have to do. Are people moving? Yes. Are people retiring? Yes. I'm seeing that light at the end of the tunnel
Right.
after 22 years. But that's more of a just I'm getting old thing.
Right.
I'm firmly in touch with what I like to call my inner Murtaugh.
Right.
You know,
Well, what about the story that the county is now going to pay police officers more because of that tax increase? So city police officers are going to leave the city and go to the county.
And understand that I'm speaking solely for me.
Yes, Cedric
Okay.
Hunter, second district police officer.
Hendricks.
I'm sorry.
Who's this Hunter guy? I don't know. I don't know. Whoever he is, he's horning in on my territory. But all I would say is I did the math, and I saw what my raise would be, and I got a little upset. Now, I'm not asking for that amount because I do know that I live where the tax brackets may be a little bit lower, but I haven't had an appreciable raise in 12 years, 14 years, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Right.
At some point, something has to be done to give the new officers and the old officers reasons to want to hang about.
Yeah.
So
it's especially with this police officer that was shot and killed in New York, which seems the information coming out that it was more or less of a hit or an assassination attempt on this police officer who was a female who was black. And the criticism people have out there is the Black Lives Matter organization, which you write about in this St. Louis American piece. You say you agree with, but all lives matter. And if all lives matter and all black lives matter and all blue lives matter, and it seems like you can't, if you support blue lives matter, you're not allowed to support black lives matter. And to most people, that doesn't make any sense.
I think the biggest problem with Black Lives Matter, like I said, is they're horribly myopic. Okay, well, I've wanted to go around and paint an asterisk on some of the signs and in small print right on the bottom, but only if a policeman is involved. That's part of your problem. The other part of your problem, and I have to give credit to another officer who told me this, is the Black Lives Matter movement left a word off of their sign. Okay, when you say Black Lives Matter, you've created unintentionally, completely unintentionally, you've created an exclusion. You're saying only Black Lives Matter.
Right.
But if you had put Black Lives Matter 2 on there, then it's inclusive. Hey, we've been marginalized. We're achieving a level of injustice that other people don't see.
Right.
We're frowned upon. That makes a bit more sense. So, this whole issue of Black Lives Matter and crime and police abuse and whatnot, it's cyclical. It's a big cycle. I wrote about that in the piece. You have a lack of economic opportunity that leads to desperation, which leads to crime, which leads to increased police presence, which leads to a possibility of something going wrong. Now, it's not a question of wanting to occupy a particular neighborhood or wanting to be somewhere all the time, but you go where the crime is. And if you don't want that kind of police presence, if you don't want the possibility of corruption, then you have to stamp down the root cause of the situation. So that means addressing the black-on-black crime. That means addressing the lack of economic opportunities. And from my standpoint, especially with a lot of officers that aren't from the neighborhood, black or white, it means empathy. It means looking at this other person and saying, hey, take 10 seconds to get into that person's shoes, feel what they feel, and then make your decisions based on that. And that goes both ways.
Can you hold through the break?
Sure.
Cedric Hendricks is our guest. He's a police officer, patrol officer in the 2nd District in the City of St. Louis Police Department. He's written an op-ed piece for the St. Louis American that's getting a lot of attention. Too black for the badge, too blue for the brothers. A black St. Louis cop asked for a little understanding and a little help. More with him in a moment. 924, Big 550, KTRS. Appliance discounters. That's where you want to go for all of your appliance needs. Now, John Carney, living at the house, he hasn't broke my Bosch dishwasher yet, but he's trying. He used it last night, and he himself has come to the conclusion that Bosch dishwasher is fantastic. Where did I get it? Appliance Discounters. Drive right by the big box store and go to Appliance Discounters. They'll get a better price. You get free delivery and installation, huge cash rebates, factory rebates, factory warranties, all of those things. And it's a St. Louis company, so you're keeping it in the family. St. Louis Appliance Discounters has 6 convenient locations on both sides of the river. Don't forget, it's also a great service department as well. So if the appliance you have currently isn't working up to its standards, Appliance Discounters will come out and send a technician and get it going in the right direction. Appliance Discounters or ApplianceDiscounters.com.
This is McGraw Live on KPLR 11.2, STLtoday.com, and the Big 550 KTRS.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bob Hardcastle, asking you to listen to my Money Talk radio program every Sunday morning from 8 to 9 a.m. on KTRS, the Big 550, where we discuss your money in an easy-to-understand manner. We'll have interesting guests chat about money, the current marketplace, and the wonderful world of investing. Also, listen for my money market wrap-ups Monday through Friday on the Big 550 a.m. at 4 p.m. That's the Big 550 KTRS at 4 p.m. Monday through Friday.
On Monday, July 10th at 11:30 a.m. Central Time, hear a 2-hour live-streamed edition of Issues in Education from the 2017 Annual Conference of SCUP, the Society of College and University Planning, to be held in Washington, D.C. Listen to national education experts, including SCUP's President Mike Moss and Board Chairman Nick Santilli, and Dennis Young, President and CEO of Vintner Architects. John Carney will travel to D.C. to be the program host. Hear national experts talk about shaping higher education, the culture of transformation, optimizing human performance and experience, and more.
McGraw, you there?
Is created and produced by Vintner Architects as the premier thought leadership platform serving education, healthcare, and business. On Tuesday, July 11th from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., this program will be rebroadcast in its entirety on the Big 550 KTRS.
McGraw, you there?
Education.net.
Hi, I'm Jerry Kell.
You can be heard on TV. What's up?
Area medicine shop pharmacies. And I want to invite
He's got his
you to
headphones
take
off.
one of the more
Even during, not during commercial breaks.
Yeah, the whole time.
experience what pharmacy is supposed to be. At Medicine Shop, we value your time and your health. We don't just fill your prescriptions. We help you manage your health.
Hello.
In personal
Yeah,
pharmacy service and
He's
long
got his
wait
headphones
times.
off. What's up?
Come experience the
Yeah,
Medicine
and
Shop
it was,
pharmacy
you know,
difference.
you had,
Go
You
ahead.
can't come to
you
us.
didn't have
We'll
any,
deliver-
lobbyists. You
testing
didn't have any.
to see
This
if I can
one's
hear
been
myself on TV.
complaining, and this one was upset that this was cut
I don't
too
think during
much.
commercial
So this one said, well, how about we work it this way?
At
How we do it
901
this way?
East
And guess
Edwardsville
what?
Road, across
By
from
the end of
Vintner.
lunch, it was done.
Come visit Jerry and the rest of my staff at the
think
Medicine
or
Shop
no?
pharmacies in Troy.
No, I know. I mean, during commercials, they don't have this.
They say otherwise.
Yeah.
At Commercial Boulevard and Highway Z.
Well, I didn't hear it. So
I know that we.
I'll text you.
Okay, yeah, it's just better.
Yeah.
Visit Brian and Sue Hercules at the Medicine Shop on Woodson Road in downtown Overland.
Hi, this is Mike Kelly. When I'm looking to send flowers to a loved one for a birthday, anniversary, or that special occasion, I call my friends at Walter Knoll Florists. Walter Knoll is family-owned and operated and offers custom designs by expert designers, a huge inventory and selection that only the largest florists can offer, with quality and care that no grocery store florist can meet. They have several locations in the St. Louis metro area to serve.
Here we go.
Online today at WKF.com. Walter Knoll Florists, your personal florist since 1883.
McGraw Millhaven on KTRS.
928 here, Big 550 KTRS. We are getting an education this morning from one of St. Louis's finest. Cedric Hendricks is our guest. He's a patrol officer in the 2nd District. He's written an op-ed piece in the St. Louis American called Too Black for the Badge, Too Blue for the Brothers. Cedric, what has been the reaction since you have written this piece?
Overwhelmingly positive.
Really?
I've had very little pushback. One young lady wrote to me on a page that was connected to a friend of mine, basically saying that I didn't understand the nature of the Black Lives Matter movement, that it's not about black-on-black crime, it's about stamping out the inherent racism and injustice coming from law enforcement, to which I said, hey, no argument from me, but until you address the black-on-black crime and remove the need for me to be in these neighborhoods, you're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
You know, that you have to break the cycle. I can't say that enough. You have to break the cycle.
Yeah. How about the white police officers, the black police officers on the job?
Overwhelmingly positive. I've shaken a lot of hands in the station
Yeah.
in the last couple of weeks, or last couple of days. You know, I didn't know what was going to happen because it was just one man's opinion, and I just wrote it and moved on.
Right.
But I've been flagged down. I've been stopped in the station. I've had crusty old sergeants congratulate me. They see my point. Now, that being said, are they seeing what they want to see in my piece? I don't know.
Right.
You know, because there's something to go around for everybody here. The issue, like I said, has to be addressed on every level, including mine.
Right. You're opening yourself up to criticism from your brothers in blue.
Yes.
And from your brothers in black, I guess,
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yes.
that's that you've sort of opened yourself up and said, this is what I believe, this is what I see, and there's a lot more to us that binds us than is different from us.
Right. It would be massively disappointing, really, to get that kind of pushback, because all I'm saying is let's empathize with one another. Let's understand each other, and that no one gets to the finish line alone. We all have to chip in. Yeah.
What was your experience like during the Ferguson riots?
Mercifully, I didn't have to go to Ferguson. I stayed back in the district. It was a lot of 12-hour days with no days off. It was exhausting, but still, watching some of my coworkers go down there, you're concerned for them. You're worried for them, and you just want everybody to.
We heard that there was quite a bit of stress on the black police officers because of the role you were placed in.
Well, and that leads to the peace. There's always going to be that kind of thing in the back of your mind when all's said and done. But really, for me, it was even more general than that when people discussed not enjoying the militarization of the police. And what it boils down to is that we are using the tools that are necessary to get us home at the end of the day. What's the old line in the Untouchables that Sean Connery uses? You know, first rule of police work is at the end of your shift, go home alive. That's all we're trying to do. And if using an armored truck or a shield barrier or a slightly more powerful weapon for somebody who's shooting at me to do that is what it takes, then that's what it takes.
Right.
And it's nothing personal. It's not. I'm not a gun nut by any stretch of the imagination. I know how to use my tools because I was well taught.
Right.
But that's me doing my job. That's me being a professional. So
what the reaction of the black officers on the police force? Overwhelmingly positive?
Regarding the article?
Yeah.
In fact, the one person that I thought was going to push back the hardest said she loved it. So they can all relate. We've all been there.
Right.
Every single one of us has been on that call or arrested that person.
Yeah,
so,
black police officers are in a different. Every police officer has their own things they have to deal with, especially in the world today. But black police officers have a different. I don't know if it's more or less. It's different. It's a different set of issues because of the color of your skin.
It doesn't always help. Now, this is the 21st century, and we try to keep that kind of thing to a minimum. That doesn't factor into my decision making. If you're wrong, you're wrong. I mean, the law is the law, and that's just the way it goes. Now, some people may see it as a bad visual in certain neighborhoods, but at the same time, the overwhelming silent majority is happy to have that criminal element removed.
Right.
They may not vocalize it the way I hear it in St. Louis Hills or Tower Grove South, but I'll get a subtle wave. I'll get what I call the nod of acknowledgement. I hate that this is radio because you can't really see.
Right.
You can't see people kind of give you kind of a little head nod.
Right.
You know,
you mean the black person giving you the head nod,
right,
like, hey, how you doing?
right,
Hey,
yeah.
we're on the same team.
Yeah. You know, I got you covered.
Yeah.
I can't say anything.
Yeah.
But you know.
I had a black teammate, a teammate of mine who the nicest, sweetest man in the entire world, Sean Buchanan. And we were somewhere, and he was walking a few steps ahead of me, and the other black guy from the other team gave him a nod and walked right by me. And Sean and I was like, Sean, why'd that guy blow me off? Right? I'm like, why are you racist? Right? I mean, we were able to talk about it, but it's
right.
You know, it was and laugh about it and joke about it and understand each other and go away better understanding each other.
Right. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
You just have to. I don't even know what you have to do. It's just a question of addressing each individual issue as it comes forth.
Yeah.
And certain areas you get treated a certain way, and other areas you get treated this way. That's just kind of the way it goes.
Let's talk for a moment about the crime in the city of St. Louis, because that is clearly the story of the day. Also, the heroin epidemic, which more people are dying of a heroin overdose than are being shot and killed. What are you seeing? What are you saying when people ask you?
I'm really not asked about it that often. I'm responding to it more than anything else, but I can agree with what some of the activists are saying at times, that it wasn't an epidemic, that the heroin epidemic wasn't an epidemic or a health issue until it snuck into the suburbs or until it snuck into wider neighborhoods, because I've been dealing with heroin for 22 years.
Right.
Okay, this is not a shock. All right,
Are you dealing with it more, though, today than you were the last 10, 12 years?
Maybe a bit. Now, when I first started on the department, it was crack. You know,
Right.
when I was up in North St. Louis, it was crack, and you come
But
further south.
I mean, there's been more deaths to heroin than murders. I mean, and that's.
I don't have the stats in front of me, so I can't confirm or deny that.
Right.
But it seems that way. I've gone on a lot more overdose calls. I will say that much.
Right.
You know, I've gotten to see a lot more Narcan in use than I would care for.
Are you administering Narcan?
No.
You don't.
No, we're not authorized to do that. That's the fire department's job.
Okay, fire department. But are you seeing an uptick in? So you're saying this is similar to the crack epidemic?
It reminds me of it, to be certain. And bear in mind that the district I work in is not that violent.
Right.
It's relatively peaceful. It used to be known as quote unquote a retirement district, and I'm a 22-year guy, so I would gravitate towards that kind of thing. But there are moments, there are patches here and there within my district where heroin is a problem, and it definitely needs to be addressed regardless of who's using it.
What about meth? You see a lot of
Meth,
meth?
I haven't seen a whole lot of. That's more of a Jefferson County Lincoln County type thing. I'm,
Right.
I'm sure they're not exclusive.
Right.
I'm not just picking on them, but
Right.
you hear about that more often from
But as
people I
a
talk to in
police
that
officer
area.
on the front lines, you don't see a lot of it.
Not as much.
You
Not
see
as
some
much.
of it, though.
I see some of it, but there are certain areas where I certainly see more.
You're close to retirement. You're thinking about retiring. What do you want to do after you retire?
What do I want to do when I grow up? Somewhere out there is a guy who's going to pay me to write about music and let me be a music journalist, and I would be
a music journalist.
A music journalist.
That's what you want to be.
I just finished writing a book about 45 years of music exploration. I'm looking for a literary agent right now. This particular issue is just another aspect of my writing, but yeah,
Right.
I have.
So you're a writer and you love music.
I'm a writer and I love music.
And the book is, give us a sense of the book. Is it like local music? Is it, what's
The book is called I Can't Be the Only One Hearing This, A Lifetime of Music Through Eclectic Ears. And it's basically me being dropped into situations where I'm hearing music I wouldn't normally hear. I grew up listening to, my parents had Stax and Motown and Philly International records. Somehow when I was 6 years old, I heard David Bowie's Space Oddity for the first time. And that changed everything, even for a 6-year-old kid.
Right.
In 1985, I went on some Army training at Fort Lee, Virginia, and a young man introduced me to King Crimson, and that changed my world. It literally changed my music world. I literally came home and threw out 2/3 of my record collection
Right.
because I didn't need it anymore.
Right.
But my musical foundation is King Crimson, Frank Zappa, and Miles Davis, and everything kind of comes out of there, in addition to some newer bands I love.
Well, Cedric, you can keep on writing, but I think if I speak for the entire St. Louis region saying don't retire. We need police officers like you.
Oh, you're stuck with me for a couple more years yet, but we'll see.
Cedric Hendricks, you are always welcome here to talk police stuff, talk music, talk your book, and I might have a literary agent or two you can talk to.
I would be much appreciative
Or
of
a
that.
publisher, too. Let's talk off the air.
Absolutely.
7:37 here, Big 550 KTRS. Cedric Hendricks is our guest. Patrol officer in the 2nd District, has penned an article in the St. Louis American. You should all read it. 2 black for the badge, 2 blue for the brothers. Thank you for your service. Be safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.